Pakistan is a state sponsor of terror. It's a fact of life, like the earth is round. But the world has trouble processing it. So we keep coming up with proof. Here's the latest installment. A UN-designated terror group called Lashkar-e-Taiba held a rally in Pakistan. Their army chief, the newly minted Field Marshal Asim Munir, was on the Lashkar poster. At this point, we don't know what's more shocking, Pakistan's brazenness or the world's blindness. Meanwhile, their Prime Minister is in delulu mode. He made a speech in Azerbaijan saying India sued for peace. We'll tell you all about it. And we are not done with bizarre statements. Donald Trump's team defended his tariffs in a US court. They said the tariffs were needed for peace between India and Pakistan. Go figure. Also in focus, Trump intensifies the chip war with China. Why India is cracking down on CCTV cameras. What is TACO? Trump always chickens out, a new nickname that has rattled the US president. What the Indian Air Force chief has said about delays in defense deliveries. What should you make of Pakistan's Bitcoin bet? Are world maps wrong? Why do richer nations look bigger? And why Germany wants a retirement plan for children. All this and more coming up. The headlines first. India responds to the US decision to pause student visa interviews. New Delhi says it hopes applications will be assessed on merit. This comes after the US paused all student visa interviews and ordered social media vetting for applicants. India sends more students to the US than any other country. Billionaire Elon Musk quits his role as a top advisor to President Trump. His exit comes after he criticized Trump's flagship spending bill, the Big Beautiful Bill. Musk has said that the proposed law undermines his work with Doge. Israel approves 22 new settlements in the West Bank. The decision was announced by the Israeli government earlier today. The West Bank remains a major flashpoint in the Israel-Palestine conflict. Hamas has called the move an annexation project. Nvidia stock surge shows no sign of slowing. The chip maker has become the world's most valuable company. Its market value crossed $3.4 trillion today. An early voting underway in South Korea's presidential election. This comes after ousted leader Yoon Suk-yeol declared martial law in the country last year. South Koreans seek stability after months of political turmoil. Propaganda was easier in the old days. No internet, no social media, no online fact checkers. You could get away with most things. But now you better be careful. All it takes is one picture or video to bust your narrative. And today we have two. Two images that expose Pakistan's links to terrorism. The first is from a city near Lahore. A massive rally was held there yesterday. It celebrated the anniversary of Pakistan's nuclear test. Now, this rally was organized by the PMML, Pakistan Markazi Muslim League. It's basically a front for the Lashkar-e-Taiba. Reports say it is led by Hafiz Saeed. In fact, his son, Talha Saeed, attended this rally. And so did this man. His name is Saifullah Kasuri. He masterminded the Pahalgam attack last month. But there he is, near Lahore. No restrictions, no fear. He is back doing what he does best, spewing venom. Saifullah is the deputy chief of the Lashkar-e-Taiba. He is also a senior military commander. He was hiding after India's military operation against Pakistan, but now he is back. As you know, the Lashkar-e-Taiba is a UN-designated terror group. Yet look at how freely its deputy chief is operating. And Islamabad cannot play dumb here, because guess who else was at the same rally? The Speaker of Pakistan's Provincial Assembly. In fact, let me freeze the frame and break it down for you. That's Hafiz Saeed's son Talha Saeed. That's the Pahalgam mastermind Saifullah. And that's the Punjab Speaker Malik Ahmad Khan. All of them on the same stage. In fact, the Speaker is sitting right next to Saifullah. Yet Pakistan says it does not sponsor terrorism. Now for the second image. A lot of these banners have been placed across Pakistan. They too celebrate the 1998 nuclear test. Look at the faces on this poster. I'm sure you recognize the man on the right. It is Field Marshal Asim Munir. But look at the faces on the left. Those are commanders of the Lashkar-e-Taiba. Let that sink in. Pakistan's army chief is on the same poster with terrorists, yet Islamabad says they do not support terrorism. We don't expect anything else from Pakistan, but what stands out is the brazenness. Think back to Operation Sindhur. After India strikes, Pakistan gave state honors to terrorists. Some of them were draped in Pakistani flags. Even army officials attended the public funerals. And weeks later, this is what we see. It means there is no effort to mask the nexus. In public statements, Pakistan may distance itself from these terrorists. But in public actions, there is no intention of hiding it. Frankly, it seems like Pakistan is flaunting its puppets. The question is, what does it mean for India? Well, it means Pakistan is not changing. They're not willing to abandon their ties to these terrorists, which is why they have to be forced. These pictures should reach the entire world. They should expose Pakistan's lies on harboring terrorism. Only then can we build consensus. As we speak, Indian delegations are fanning across the world, and they're doing precisely that, exposing Pakistan's nexus with terrorists. I hope they add these pictures to their arsenal. But consensus alone is not enough. It must be followed with action. And that is where India is facing resistance. From where? Pakistan's iron brother China. India has been trying to target the group behind the Pahalgam attack. They're called the TRF, the Resistance Front. It's basically a proxy for the Lashkar-e-Taiba. India is trying to put the TRF on the UN Security Council sanctions list. And India has tried thrice so far. In December 2023, in May 2024, and in December 2024, each time India's push was blocked by China. But the same China is okay with designating the BLA, the Baloch Liberation Army. So Beijing is basically doing Pakistan's bidding at the United Nations Security Council. India will have to work overtime to expose this nexus. First, between Pakistan and the terrorists, and then between Pakistan and China. Because together, they are harboring terrorists. We have a short window to push our message through. After that, the news cycle will change again. Pictures like these are gold dust in the information war. Let's hope India can use them well. Pakistan's actors have no place in Bollywood. They can't star in Indian blockbusters. But they don't have to worry too much because there is an up-and-coming director in Islamabad. He has all the elements. Patriotic monologues, over-the-top action, a bigger-than-life villain, and a hero wrapped in medals. When it comes to cooking up stories, he's got the recipe just right. If you're still wondering who I'm talking about, it's Pakistan's Prime Minister, Shehbaz Sharif.
Ladies and gentlemen, Pakistan has just been able to overpower an enemy in the last few weeks, which is 5 times more populated than Pakistan, which is many times stronger in economic terms than Pakistan.
Shehbaz Sharif is on a so-called victory lap in Central and West Asia, except there is no victory to begin with. But the Pakistani Prime Minister doesn't seem to care. Who doesn't love a free holiday? So first he visited Turkey and Iran, and then he landed in Azerbaijan. And this is where his delusion went out of control. Listen to this.
We had to respond in defense of Pakistan. And within no time, our formidable Air Force downed 6 Indian planes, 4 Rafale French-made planes, 1 MiG-29 and another plane, and then a drone.
Did he just say they conveyed a message to India? Because according to every satellite image, India destroyed Pakistani terror camps and Pakistani air bases. So what did Pakistan win? And Shehbaz Sharif has admitted it himself that even before Pakistan could respond, India hit them with BrahMos missiles. Not sure what it is with Pakistanis and confessions. They're not just losing battles, they're losing the whole plot.
We decided to respond in a measured fashion to Indian aggression, and we had decided that at 4:30 in the morning after Fajr prayers, Pakistan armed forces, led very ably by our Field Marshal, Chief Army Staff sitting here, Syed Asim Munir, to teach a lesson to our enemy. But before that hour reached, India again launched missile attacks, BrahMos, and hit Pakistan's various provinces.
After that brief detour, Sharif was back on script, and of course he introduced his hero, Army Chief Asim Munir. Because let's face it, he fits the part. A classic military guy with a flair for dramatic statements.
Our Chief of Staff, who's sitting here in the first, Field Marshal, could you kindly stand up, and I would like to introduce you to the... He told me that Prime Minister, India has again attacked. His voice was conveying unshakable confidence. He was absolutely resolved, calm, but then absolutely clear that we will have to now teach our enemy a lesson of their life.
Shehbaz, in full fanboy mode, called him Field Marshal. Yes, Field Marshal, a title once reserved for people who actually won wars. But now it belongs to Asim Munir. And he stood there deadpan. Maybe even he wasn't buying it. Around him, though, there was applause. Because when Pakistan stages a moment, its cheer squad shows up on cue. Turkey and Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan's president applauded politely. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan even placed a hand on his heart. After that, it was time for the climax.
For their military installations, and gave them a befitting reply. By 9 a.m. in the morning, Field Marshal rang me again and said, Prime Minister, India has approached Pakistan for a ceasefire. What are your instructions? I said, Field Marshal, Allah Almighty has given us a victorious day, a glorious victory. Now let us accept this request of India for a ceasefire because we believe in peace.
Well, you saw Erdogan placed a hand on his heart. After that, like I said, it was time for the climax. Shehbaz Sharif saved the best for the last. You see, India attacked Pakistani terror camps. It attacked their military bases. It damaged runways and infrastructure. But in Shehbaz's blockbuster version, there was a twist in the tale. He said India sued for peace. India called and begged and asked for a ceasefire.
we went for their military installations and gave them a befitting reply. By 9 a.m. in the morning, Field Marshal rang me again and said, Prime Minister, India has approached Pakistan for a ceasefire. What are your instructions? I said, Field Marshal, Allah Almighty has given us a victorious day, a glorious victory. Now let us accept this request of India for a ceasefire because we believe in peace.
The Pakistan army treats civilian prime ministers like temporary interns. Suddenly, the army chief is asking for the prime minister's instruction. Next, they will say Islamabad held free elections and Trump planned his tariffs in consultation with them. But here are the facts. Pakistan did not win a war. India did not sue for peace. Pakistan tried to attack India. It failed. It suffered heavy losses, so it scrambled to dial the phone and to ask India for a ceasefire. But credit where it's due. Shehbaz Sharif has achieved something that Bollywood, even Hollywood, hasn't managed lately. He's kept an entire nation glued to their seats just with absolute uncut fiction. A blockbuster. Zero promotion, zero budgets, and zero connection to reality. We even have a name for it. Mission Impossible, Pakistan finally wins a war. Starring Shehbaz Sharif as the storyteller-in-chief and Asim Munir as the field marshal of fantasy. Tickets are free, courtesy the IMF. And if you stay till the post-credit scene, spoiler, the army stages a coup. Vantage continues after a short break.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
So we have seen a court filing in which the Trump administration has claimed that because of the tariff threat that India-Pakistan were able to have that ceasefire understanding. What is India's stance on that court filing?
Okay. मधु
सर मधुरेंद्र मैं न्यूज नेशन से। सर ऑपरेशन सिंदूर के ठीक बाद अब ये देखा जा रहा है कि पाकिस्तान के जो आतंकी हैं, खासतौर पे लश्कर-ए-तैयबा के आतंकी, जिनकी प्रमुख भूमिका जो है पहलगाम आतंकी घटना में रही, वो भारत विरोधी मंच सजा रहे हैं। वहां से भारत को धमकियां दी जा रही हैं और सबसे बड़ी बात यह है कि उनके साथ पाकिस्तान की सेना की सुरक्षा दिखाई दे रही है, पाकिस्तान के मंत्री दिखाई दे रहे हैं। इस पर क्या इंडिया रिस्पॉन्ड करना चाहेगा?
Sir, Pranay Upadhyay from India Today Aaj Tak. My question is regarding the 3 Indians who are missing in Iran, and this is yet another incident in last few months with Indians have gone missing, and there have been ransom calls. Is the government of India aware about the fact that the ransom calls have been made from Pakistan and people have been asked to deposit money in Pakistani accounts? How are we taking up this issue, and what is the response from the Iranian side?
Okay. Yeshi?
This is Yeshi Seli from Business India. I have 2 questions. One is on the uncertainty and instability in Bangladesh. There was talk of Professor Yunus submitting his resignation, then he had an all-party meeting. Is that a point of concern? And secondly, you had mentioned in the last briefing that there is no update yet on whether PM Modi will go for the G7. But with the new Prime Minister, is there likelihood of restoration of diplomatic ties? What is the situation between India and Canada right now?
Okay. So, पहला सवाल उमा शंकर आपका है। देखिए, जहाँ तक हमारी जो द्विपक्षीय बातचीत या संबंध या जो एंगेजमेंट है पाकिस्तान के साथ, उस पे हमारा पक्ष, हमारा रवैया बड़ा साफ है, क्लियर रहा है, कंसिस्टेंट रहा है। जैसे हमने पहले भी बताया कि कोई भी इस प्रकार का द्विपक्षीय संबंध दोनों देशों के बीच में सिर्फ और सिर्फ बायलैटरल या कि दो पक्षीय ही रहेगा। साथ ही साथ हम ये फिर से दोहराना चाहते हैं कि आतंकवाद और बातचीत दोनों साथ में नहीं चल सकता है। और जहां तक आतंकवाद का सवाल है, 2 देशों के बीच में सिर्फ और सिर्फ बायलैटरल या कि दो पक्षीय ही रहेगा। साथ ही साथ हम ये फिर से दोहराना चाहते हैं कि आतंकवाद और बातचीत दोनों साथ में नहीं चल सकता है। और जहां तक आतंकवाद का सवाल है, उस पर बात इस मुद्दे पे होगी एक पाकिस्तान से कि जो हम लोगों ने उन आतंकियों का सूची जो दिया था उनको कुछ साल पहले, उनको हमारे हवाले करें। इस बात का मैंने जिक्र पिछले जो प्रेस वार्ता हुआ था उसमें भी किया था। और जहां तक जम्मू कश्मीर का सवाल है, उस पर जो बातचीत होगी द्विपक्षीय रूप से, जो बायलैटरल ढंग से ही बात होगी, वो सिर्फ और सिर्फ इस बात पे होगी कि पाकिस्तान ऑक्युपाइड कश्मीर यानी कि पाकिस्तान अधिकृत कश्मीर
When delusion bleeds into policy, it's no longer a joke, it becomes a threat. And that's the thing about Donald Trump's presidency. His wild claims, they make headlines, they make us laugh, we roll our eyes. But what happens when the fantasy starts writing the laws? And legal cases stand on made-up facts. Then the cost is not just political, it is global. And right now, it's playing out in a US courtroom. It starts with Trump's tariffs. Back in April, he slapped tariffs on the whole world, his idea of a so-called Liberation Day. Those tariffs faced multiple lawsuits. The matter went to court in America. Trump's team jumped to defend it. They said pausing the tariffs would revive the India-Pakistan conflict. Pausing the tariffs would revive the India-Pakistan conflict, a conflict that the US was not involved in. But somehow it would impact American tariffs. Talk about delusion. First, Trump says he mediated a ceasefire. Now his officials claim that Trump's trade war is crucial for peace in South Asia. In other words, world peace now depends on Trump's tariffs.
Just days ago, my administration successfully brokered a historic ceasefire to stop the escalating violence between India and Pakistan. And I used trade to a large extent to do it. I said, fellas, come on, let's make a deal. Let's do some trading. Let's not trade nuclear missiles. Let's trade the things that you make so beautifully.
Why would his team make a bizarre argument like they did? Well, to understand that, let's rewind a bit. Trump imposed his tariffs on a provision called the IEEPA, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. Like the name suggests, it's an emergency act. It is meant for rare national emergencies. This act gives the US presidents broad powers, like imposing tariffs on the rest of the world. President Trump used it to wage an irrational trade war that attracted a lot of lawsuits. Soon the matter reached the US Court of International Trade. The case was heard by 3 judges. One of those judges was appointed by Trump himself. And it's here in this court that Trump's team made the arguments to defend his tariffs. And what's their defense? If you take away Trump's tariff powers, India and Pakistan might go to war. Basically, they had to make up a national emergency on the go, and they decided to go with this one. I wish I were making this up. But this is what they said in a court filing. Let me read it out for you. This ceasefire was only achieved after President Trump interceded and offered both nations trading access with the United States to avert a full-scale war. An adverse ruling that constrains presidential power in this case could lead India and Pakistan to question the validity of President Trump's offer, threatening the security of an entire region and the lives of millions. Can you believe it? As you know, Pakistan-backed terrorists killed 26 people in India's Pahalgam. India responded by targeting 9 terror facilities in Pakistan. It continued until Pakistan sued for peace. Islamabad reached out to India. The two sides agreed on a ceasefire, and that was the end of it. India says Donald Trump was not involved in any of this. Yes, the US was speaking to both sides, but his trade deal was not the reason for peace. It was India's strikes on Pakistan's military bases. That is what spooked them. Trump's tariffs were not even a consideration. Yet Trump claims that he was the peacemaker. Now, India has repeatedly debunked this claim, but Trump's team has gone a step further. They say only his tariffs can prevent another conflict between India and Pakistan. Of course, the court saw through all of this. They have shot down Trump's argument. The American court has said that the tariffs are unlawful. It has halted the tariffs. But you can see the problem with this. When you turn courtrooms into story time, you're not just bending the truth, you're bending the system. Trump did not broker peace in South Asia. He brokered a lie and then tried to use it as a legal weapon. This is a dangerous precedent. It's a warning to the rest of the world, because in Trump's America, reality is optional. If we just keep laughing it off, soon the joke is going to be on us. Now let's talk about chips, not the kind that you eat. We're talking about the chips that power all modern gadgets, the semiconductors that run everything from smartphones to missiles and even your favorite AI apps. These chips are the new oil, and two superpowers are fighting over them, the United States and China. They're locked in an economic dogfight. Donald Trump is trying to contain China's tech rise. He doesn't want Beijing near high-end chips, so he is issuing new orders and shutting down access. The latest restrictions target chip software, something called EDA, Electronic Design Automation. You may not have heard of it, but here's what you should know. The EDA software is an important piece in the chip puzzle. You cannot make any advanced chips without it. Without EDA, you cannot design, test, or build next-generation semiconductors. So this is an indispensable tool. You must have it. And that is why Trump is targeting it. He has stopped the sale of EDAs to China, and this could just be the beginning. More restrictions are believed to be in the pipeline. In fact, last month a report had come out. It said the US was preparing a new blacklist to target Chinese chip makers directly and to block them from accessing any US technology. Some officials warned against this move. They feared that it would undermine trade talks. So they pushed for a delay. In the meantime, the US and China agreed to lower tariffs and work on a trade deal.
And we have another big one that we just reached with China. China deal is a very big deal. It's in the process of continuing to be formed. But they wanted to make that deal very badly.
But knowing how Trump operates, the deal with China looks like a long shot. What's more likely is the return of his blanket bans. Since taking office, Trump has only extended restrictions on chips, and he has expanded the scope of these restrictions. His predecessor, Joe Biden, had a different approach. Biden preferred targeted restrictions. Trump likes blanket bans. No room for nuance, no room for compromise. That is how Trump has taken his trade decisions, and now the same approach is dictating his chips policy. But is the strategy even working? Are trade bans really slowing China down? Tech industry leaders do not think so. One of them is Jensen Huang. He is the CEO of NVIDIA, the world's biggest supplier of chips. He says export curbs have failed, and they've hurt US companies more than China. Why? Because China has had the time to prepare. They have stockpiled chips, they closed the loopholes, and now they're catching up fast. Experts say that China is making serious progress. Their gap with the US is shrinking. The question is how? How are they doing it? How has China pulled it off? Thanks to two factors. One is investment. China is spending big money on chip making. You could say Beijing is practically cutting blank checks. And I'll give you an example. In 2024, China spent $41 billion, $41 billion, to buy the tools that are used to make chips. In fact, China alone accounted for 40% of global sales. Clearly, they're pumping some serious money into this. That's the first factor. The second factor is government subsidies. Again, I have some data. Between 2014 and 2018, 4 companies in China were given loans. These were state-backed chip companies. They were given $5 billion in loan, and that too on low interest rates. And on top of that, China gives tax breaks, free land, and subsidized utilities to chip makers. These are all compelling incentives, and for any chip maker, they significantly bring down the overall expenses. So it's no surprise that making chips in China is cheaper than making chips in America. The cost of operating a chip plant is 37% lower in China, all thanks to state investment and subsidies. And this has helped China bridge the gap with the US. But Xi Jinping is not done. He wants to beat the United States, and he's working on a plan for that, a follow-up to their Made in China strategy. This new plan will focus on building high-end technologies like chips and boosting their production. Basically, China is moving towards self-reliance in technology. Eventually, it wants to dominate this space. Where does that leave the United States? At a turning point. The Americans have some serious thinking to do. Their restrictions have not worked. Their sanctions and trade curbs rarely deliver results. They failed to slow down Russia, and they haven't stopped China. Instead, they have fired up the Chinese engine. Beijing is not slowing down, it is responding, it is investing, it is outspending. This tech war is a battle for the future of computing, the future of defense, the future of artificial intelligence. Every one of these fields runs on chips, and whoever controls the chips will control what comes next. Today, the US dominates the world's chip supply, but at this rate, China will soon give them a run for their money. Closed-circuit television, or CCTV. You've seen them everywhere, perhaps on traffic lights, in office lobbies, in hotels, in elevators, even your local convenience store. Someone is always watching you. But who is watching the CCTVs? Do they pose a security risk? It's a question that India is trying to address. India is cracking down on CCTVs because turns out they're not just eyes on the street. They can also be ears for foreign powers. So India has come up with new rules. These are for CCTV makers. If the device is connected to the internet, it needs certification. And that means rigorous safety testing. Unless that is done, you cannot sell in India. Tonight we'll discuss why this is important, and we'll break it down. First things first, what are these new rules? Like I said, they're for any internet-connected CCTV camera, whether made in India or imported. It applies to all. Now, they must pass cybersecurity checks, and that too in government-approved labs. These checks include hardware inspections, firmware testing, and even the right for labs to demand source code. This is especially if the camera uses custom communication protocols. Companies may also be subjected to factory audits, including those that are located outside India. They can face audits. All devices made or imported after April 9th, 2025 fall under this rule. Now, question number 2. Is this move linked to China? Is this because of China? Now, officially, India has not named China, but the dragon's shadow looms large over this. You see, China is the world's largest CCTV manufacturer. They control almost 45% of the global market. And most of India's CCTVs or their parts come from Chinese manufacturers, almost 80% of the components. The two biggest players are Hikvision and Dahua. Both are Chinese giants. Combined, they own about 30% of the Indian market, these two companies. Question number 3. What exactly is the concern? It's quite simple. Chinese CCTV cameras are being used for surveillance, and given their history, you wouldn't put it past them. China has a law. It is called the National Intelligence Law. This law says that all Chinese companies must support and collaborate in national intelligence work, meaning all Chinese companies contribute to their intelligence network. And that makes any Chinese tech a potential Trojan horse. They've been flagged by other countries. Like in 2022, the US banned Chinese CCTV brands Hikvision and Dahua. America called them national security risks. Then Australia and the UK slapped restrictions, and now India is concerned. Question number 4, how are manufacturers reacting to all of this? As you would expect, not very well. On April 3rd, executives from 17 CCTV manufacturers met in Delhi, the likes of Motorola, Bosch, Honeywell, Xiaomi, and Hanwha. They asked for a delay in the rules to be implemented. The government did not agree. Some firms even warned of dire consequences. They said the policy would impact ongoing infra projects. Question number 5, will these new rules impact or prevent surveillance? Surveillance from other countries. Well, that is the goal. Think of these new rules as a kind of digital customs checkpoint. Basically, before your camera enters the country, it has to prove that it is not hiding any spyware, which is why the rigorous testing. It must pass all the tests to sell in India. And what happens if a company refuses? Well, then it is stuck in regulatory limbo. Reports suggest that one such example is Xiaomi. It was told that its testing could not proceed, not until Xiaomi provided extra information about its China-based contractors. Question 6. Is this part of a larger pattern? Yes, it is. Since the 2020 border clashes, India has grown far less tolerant of Chinese tech. India banned TikTok and dozens of other Chinese apps. It encouraged domestic manufacturing. The CCTV crackdown is just the latest chapter in the story. It's about controlling the tools that monitor us. Question 7. Will these new rules affect India's CCTV market? In 2024, this is where the numbers stood. India's surveillance market was worth $3.5 billion. By 2030, it is projected to double to $7 billion. The public sector makes up about 27% of this demand. The rest is all thanks to private buyers. Now, there could be some delays in supply going forward. As of May, 342 applications from camera manufacturers were pending. So far, only one foreign company has got the approvals. But some Indian players are also benefiting from this crackdown, like the homegrown brand CP+, which already controls nearly half the market. Question 8. What is next? Well, more testing, perhaps more friction and possibly more surveillance, but without compromising on national security. Indian officials say they might approve more testing labs. It may take a while to get this going, but India's signal is quite clear. If you're watching us, we are watching you. Now let's talk about US President Donald Trump. Wall Street has a new term for him, TACO. And this has got nothing to do with the snack. TACO is an acronym. It stands for Trump Always Chickens Out, TACO. It's basically a dig at the president's tariff flip-flops, how he threatens trade wars only to back down. Traders have caught on to Trump's tactics. They no longer react to his threats. Instead, they time his retreats. When Trump talks tough, they wait for the U-turn. And they trade on a simple rule that Trump always chickens out. Last night, TACO made it to the White House. A reporter asked the president about it. And as expected, Trump was not amused. Here's a report.
Mr. President, Wall Street analysts have coined a new term called the TACO trade.
Yes, you heard that right. Forget the bulls and the bears and meet the latest beast on Wall Street. The taco. No, it's not about Mexican food, it's about tariffs and chicken. Because on Wall Street, taco doesn't mean lunch, it means Trump always chickens out. And no, the president did not find that appetizing.
Oh, isn't that nice? Chicken out. I've never heard that.
He hadn't heard of it, but that didn't stop him from digging in.
It's called negotiation.
To Trump, backing down from a 145% tariff threat is not chickening out. It's negotiation with a twist.
I reduced China from 145% that I set down to 100. I gave the European Union a 50% tax.
3 days ago, he rolled back that 50% tariff on the EU and extended the deadline to the 9th of July. Markets rallied because they've seen this show before. The term taco trade was cooked up by a financial columnist. It describes how investors trade on Trump's tariff swings. When he threatens high tariffs, the markets slide. When Trump backs off, they rebound.
You call that chickening out?
Wall Street says yes, and more importantly, they call it predictable. There are numbers to back up this trading strategy. Since taking office, Trump has announced, reversed and cancelled tariffs by more than 50 times.
Tariffs.
The investors have figured out Trump's tricks and gave it a name. One the president clearly didn't enjoy.
But don't ever say what you said. That's a nasty question.
Nasty or not, it's a question investors are already pricing in. They've adjusted to the drama and they're making money from Trump's script. So whether you think it's smart negotiation or just strategic retreat, one thing is clear. President Trump has created a new kind of trade strategy, and Wall Street gave it a name. It's not very diplomatic, it's not particularly kind, but it is catchy. Taco. It's the new flip-flop formula that somehow fuels the market.
Operation Sindhur was a big success for India's military, for our soldiers, for our weapons and for our military leadership. It's easy to feel complacent after such a win. Thankfully, India is not going down that road. Instead, it is doubling down to build on this recent success. And leading the charge is India's Air Force Chief, Air Chief Marshal Amarpreet Singh. He spoke at a business event in New Delhi today. He started off by hailing Operation Sindhur. He called it a national victory. Then the Air Chief turned to making in India. He said weapons must be designed, developed and produced at home, which is where the defense industry comes in. The military must be able to trust the Indian arms makers, their quality and their reliability. The Air Chief used Bollywood to explain his point. He borrowed a dialogue from actor Salman Khan, and this is what he said.
We need to have this trust between the forces and the industry continued. We need to have the communication continued. We need to be open with each other. That एक बारी जो हमने commit किया है, फिर मैं अपने आप की भी नहीं सुनता, है ना, वो वाले.
The message is clear. If you commit to something, it must be done, and that too on time. Unfortunately, this is not happening at the moment. India's defense deliveries are running behind schedule, especially those of fighter jets. Again, the Air Chief did not hold back. He said not a single project had been completed on time.
Once a timeline is given, not a single project that I can think of has been completed on time. So this is something where we have to look at. Why should we promise something which cannot be achieved? While signing the contract itself, some of the times we are sure that it is not going to come up. But we just signed the contract. Uske baad dekhenge kya karna.
And this is not his first warning. Air Chief Singh had flagged the same issue in February as well. He spoke about the delays in Tejas jets. Now, Tejas is India's homegrown fighter jet. It is made by the state-run HAL, Hindustan Aeronautics Limited. The Air Chief said he had no confidence left in HAL. And you can see why. The Tejas Mark 1 deliveries have been delayed. The Mark 2 prototype has not rolled out yet, and the 5th generation has just been approved. It looks like the government has noted this issue because they've made a big change this time. Normally, all jet orders go directly to HAL, but for the 5th gen jet, the government is inviting private players as well. Clearly, there is an attempt to diversify, and we say it's a good move. HAL was virtually operating as a monopoly in India's jet space, and that too a state-run monopoly. It was important to inject some competition into the space, not to dethrone HAL, but to nudge them. Coming back to the Air Chief's remarks, he made another crucial point on research and development.
One is R&D budget. I think it has very clearly been brought out by everybody that we need to invest more. If I think people from Punjabi community will understand something called daswant, that we said 10% of our earnings should go back towards the society. So something like that CSR has been started. I think something on those lines we should start, that if I'm earning so much of money should go towards R&D, towards defense of the nation.
Now let's look at the numbers. India uses around 5 to 6% of its defense budget on R&D, on research and development, 5 to 6%. All this money goes to the DRDO, which is the Defense and Research Development Organization. It's a state-run R&D lab for Indian weapons, and they get 5 to 6% of the defense spending. Let's compare it to others. The US allocates between 11 and 14%. China allocates up to 20% of its defense budget on research and development. So the gap is considerable. Now, to be fair, the government is working on it. The DRDO chief made an announcement today. He said the defense minister had promised to boost his funding from 5% to 10% within 5 years. It's a good start, but more needs to be done. Some experts have proposed a special R&D fund. Right now, all this money goes to the state-run DRDO, as I just said. But what if you could also fund private research or a defense startup? That's how the American defense industry grew. Even today, the Pentagon, their defense ministry, pumps millions into the private sector. And in China, it's the opposite. You have state-run designers and manufacturers in China. Ideally, India should aim for the middle, to do a bit of both. The heavy lifting will have to be done by our public sector companies, but the private sector must also step up. They can supply parts and components. They can also keep these state-run firms on their toes. Like the air chief said, it's all about your commitment. Delays in weapons are more than just administrative issues. They could be the difference on the battlefield. So despite winning, India is upping its game. It is focusing on homegrown weapons and research. Meanwhile, guess what Pakistan is doing? They're buying up Bitcoin. It's frankly a typical Pakistan move, random and bizarre. But is there more to it than meets the eye? What is the logic behind Pakistan's crypto bet? First, let me give you the background. Las Vegas is hosting a major crypto event this week. It's called the Bitcoin Conference. Pakistan's top crypto official went there. He unveiled the country's strategic Bitcoin reserve. Now, don't underestimate this event. It wasn't some nerdy crypto bros hanging out in Las Vegas. Well, it was, but it was also about government officials. US Vice President J.D. Vance was also in the audience. So were Donald Trump's sons, Eric and Trump Jr. It was to this audience that Pakistan unveiled its Bitcoin reserve. Think of it as a national asset. We know that governments hold gold and foreign exchange. Just like that, Pakistan will hold Bitcoin. This reserve will not be used to invest or sell. It is meant as a backup, just like gold. A few other countries have also tried this. El Salvador was among the first. And this year, Donald Trump created one for the US. Now, it's not clear how much crypto they hold, but most of it was seized from criminals and fraudsters. In fact, that is how most crypto reserves work. The government does not buy new currency. The government simply stores the seized ones. Now, coming back to Pakistan, this Bitcoin reserve is not an isolated move. Pakistan's government set up a crypto council in the month of February. In April, they signed a deal with a US firm, a firm called World Liberty Financial. And guess who owns it? Donald Trump and his family. Pakistan is also allocating power for Bitcoin mining. As you know, mining is done on computers, and it consumes a large amount of electricity. So Pakistan is setting aside 2,000 megawatts of power for Bitcoin, 2,000 megawatts. You cannot make this up. Around 50 million people in Pakistan do not have access to electricity, but sure, mine Bitcoin by all means. The question is, why is Pakistan doing it? Why are they making this bet? Well, believe it or not, Pakistanis love cryptocurrency. The country has around 40 million crypto wallets. In comparison, only 250,000 Pakistanis invest in the stock market. Look at the gap. It is mind-boggling, but true. But Islamabad is not doing this out of love for its people. They are doing this for strategic gains. For starters, they can get on to Donald Trump's good books. It's a plan we've seen before. I mentioned El Salvador's Bitcoin reserve. Their president is now very close to Donald Trump. In fact, he was invited to the White House last month. And turns out, Trump's Commerce Secretary has close ties to a crypto firm in El Salvador. So the whole thing is murky. It's possible that Pakistan is looking to replicate that strategy, and it's a prime candidate. El Salvador is ruled by a dictator. Pakistan is ruled by the military. El Salvador is submerged in foreign debt. Pakistan is living from bailout to bailout. Both countries are desperate and easy to manipulate. They do not have strong regulations or checks and balances. So you can get virtually any legislation passed, including crypto-friendly ones. Pakistan is hoping to hit two birds with one stone here. A, they get on Trump's good books. And B, they can attract foreign investment. But for India, this is a major worry. You see, crypto is an unregulated global currency. It is hard to detect and follow, which is why multiple terror groups use it. Hamas is known to use crypto. So is the Palestinian Islamic Jihad and the Islamic State. Unlike cash, crypto is untraceable. Terror groups can raise funds from supporters. They can move funds across borders, all without being traced. Imagine this kind of power in the hands of Pakistan. There isn't much that India can do against this move, but global bodies can certainly help, especially the FATF, the Financial Action Task Force. Their job is to crack down on money laundering and terror financing. Pakistan says its crypto plans will be compliant with FATF, but we say there should be a closer look. What Islamabad calls a strategic reserve could be India's strategic threat. Vantage continues after a short break.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
So we have seen a court filing in which the Trump administration has claimed that because of the tariff threat that India, Pakistan were able to have that ceasefire understanding. What is India's stance on that court filing?
Okay. मधु
सर, मधुरेंद्र, मैं न्यूज नेशन से। सर, ऑपरेशन सिंदूर के ठीक बाद अब ये देखा जा रहा है कि पाकिस्तान के जो आतंकी हैं, खासतौर पे लश्कर-ए-तैयबा के आतंकी, जिनकी प्रमुख भूमिका जो है पहलगाम आतंकी घटना में रही, वो भारत विरोधी मंच सजा रहे हैं। वहां से भारत को धमकियां दी जा रही हैं और सबसे बड़ी बात यह है कि उनके साथ पाकिस्तान की सेना की सुरक्षा दिखाई दे रही है, पाकिस्तान के मंत्री दिखाई दे रहे हैं। इस पर क्या इंडिया रिस्पॉन्ड करना चाहेगा?
Sir, Pranay Upadhyay from India Today Aaj Tak. My question is regarding the 3 Indians who are missing in Iran, and this is yet another incident in last few months with Indians have gone missing, and there have been ransom calls. Is Government of India aware about the fact that the ransom calls have been made from Pakistan and people have been asked to deposit money in Pakistani accounts? How are we taking up this issue, and what is the response from the Iranian side?
Okay. Yeshi?
This is Yeshi Seli from Business India. I have 2 questions. One is on the uncertainty and instability in Bangladesh. There was talk of Professor Yunus submitting his resignation, then he had an all-party meeting. Is that a point of concern? And secondly, you had mentioned in the last briefing that there is no update yet on whether PM Modi will go for the G7. But with the new Prime Minister, is there likelihood of restoration of diplomatic ties? What is the situation between India and Canada right now?
Okay. So, पहला सवाल उमा शंकर आपका है। देखिए, जहां तक हमारी जो द्विपक्षीय बातचीत या संबंध या जो एंगेजमेंट है पाकिस्तान के साथ, उस पे हमारा पक्ष, हमारा रवैया बड़ा साफ है, क्लियर रहा है, कंसिस्टेंट रहा है। जैसे हमने पहले भी बताया कि कोई भी इस प्रकार का दो पक्षीय संबंध दोनों देशों के बीच में सिर्फ और सिर्फ बायलैटरल या कि दो पक्षीय ही रहेगा। साथ ही साथ हम ये फिर से दोहराना चाहते हैं कि आतंकवाद और बातचीत दोनों साथ में नहीं चल सकता है। और जहां तक आतंकवाद का सवाल है, उस पे बात इस मुद्दे पे होगी एक पाकिस्तान से कि जो हम लोगों ने उन आतंकियों का सूची जो दिया था उनको कुछ साल पहले, उनको हमारे हवाले करें। इस बात का मैंने जिक्र पिछले जो प्रेस वार्ता हुआ था उसमें भी किया था। और जहां तक जम्मू कश्मीर का सवाल है, उस पे जो बातचीत होगी द्विपक्षीय रूप से, जो बायलैटरल ढंग से ही बात होगी, वो सिर्फ और सिर्फ इस बात पे होगी कि पाकिस्तान ऑक्युपाइड कश्मीर यानी कि पाकिस्तान अधिकृत कश्मीर को कब का जो पाकिस्तान उसको इलीगल तरीके से अवैध।
If you had to draw a world map, how would you do it? It's a tough question. Our world is round. The map should be flat. So ideally, you would have to peel off the Earth's skin, paste it on a flat board, and then trace it. But of course, you can't do that. No one can. Which is why most world maps are wrong. They are a lie. Did you grow up thinking that Greenland is the size of Africa? Well, that's wrong. Africa is 14 times the size of Greenland. Do you think that Alaska is larger than Mexico? Again, wrong. And you can blame world maps for this. They have shrunk the global south. They have enlarged the historically rich and powerful nations. They have warped our worldview. And they have built a subconscious bias. But why is that? And is there no accurate projection of the world? Here's a report.
When you think of the world, in all likelihood, this map comes to mind. It's everywhere. It's plastered on school walls. It's in atlases. It's even used by Google Maps. Yet this map is very, very wrong. It has led us to believe that Greenland is the same size as Africa, which is incorrect. In reality, Africa is about 14 times the size of Greenland. This map also shows that Europe looms larger than South America when it's actually half its size. Similarly, no, Alaska is not bigger than Mexico. Enraged yet? You can blame it on the Mercator map projection. This is the most common version of the world map. It was developed by a Flemish cartographer in 1569. That's more than 4 centuries ago. But its popularity continues even today. And it remains unparalleled. That said, this is not the only world map. In the early 1900s, many other maps were devised. All of them were problematic as well. In the 2000s, cartographers have tried to make better maps. Thanks to advanced technology and increased geographical knowledge, access to maps is no longer confined to the Western elite. So maps have become far more scientific. But things haven't changed much. After all, cartographers have to make countless decisions. Some of the choices are technical, some are informed by assumptions, but most of them continue to be based on historical convention. And this is a big problem. Maps that surge to popularity were designed in the West, and for centuries their widespread use was connected to colonialism. For instance, the Mercator map cemented its popularity by showing sailing routes. And such maps shrink the global south while disproportionately enlarging the rich and powerful nations. Over the years, this has shaped a warped worldview. It has fueled an inherent bias. Experts say this has had a damaging impact for Asia and Africa because maps fundamentally change how we see the world, whether through business decisions or people's choices while picking tourist destinations. So the map debate is rife. People have asked, what does a perfect map look like? Can anyone accurately depict the world? Most experts have said no. After all, we live in a 3-dimensional and spherical world. Creating its precise depiction will involve cutting it up, pasting it on a flat surface and tracing the borders, which is impossible. So maps will always have to tell a lie somewhere, whether in area or distance. But over the past few years, some campaigners have tried to come up with alternatives nonetheless. They have tried to create near-perfect maps. It's called the Equal Earth Projection. It's not perfect, but it comes quite close. Now, many advocates in Africa have been pushing for its adoption. They want global institutions and schools to adopt it. NASA has adopted this map, and so has the World Bank. So there is progress. It's slow but steady, and it's necessary. After all, we may live in a world where size is equated with power, but this doesn't mean that we can't try to change it.
Hello and welcome to the late night edition with me, Ayushman Singh Jamwal. Big breaking news coming in on the top of the bulletin. This is a huge admission coming in from Pakistan Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif. Even as opposition leaders in India question Operation Sindhur, Shehbaz Sharif has admitted that India used BrahMos missiles and destroyed many Pakistani air bases, including crippling the Rawalpindi airport. Sharif has said that after the initial strikes on the terror launch pads, India crippled the Pakistani military before Pakistan could launch a counter-attack. A huge admission coming in from the Pakistan Prime Minister. Listen it.
9th and 10th night, we decided to respond in a measured fashion to Indian aggression, and we had decided that at 4:30 in the morning after Fajr prayers, Pakistan armed forces, led very ably by our Field Marshal, Chief Army Staff sitting here, Syed Asim Munir, to teach a lesson to our enemy. But before that hour reached, India again launched missile attacks, BrahMos, and hit Pakistan's various provinces, including airport in Rawalpindi and other places.
And I'm joined by my colleague Siddhant Mishra on the broadcast. So Siddhant, clearly a huge admission coming in from Shehbaz Sharif. We've been seeing the escalating politics back home when it comes to Operation Sindhur. Several opposition leaders questioning the tenets of what India actually achieved in that strike on Pakistan. But that admission now coming in straight from the horse's mouth. The Prime Minister of Pakistan saying not just those military bases, but even the Rawalpindi airport, the epicenter of the Pakistani military, was crippled by India's BrahMos missiles.
Well, absolutely. And this is the second such confession by Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif in last 1 week or so. In fact, last time around, he said that how Nuh Khan Air Base was hit by the Indian forces. And you know, Army Chief Asim Munir informed him about the same. And now today he has confessed that how BrahMos struck the air base in Rawalpindi, perhaps again a very strategically important air base for the Pakistani armed forces. So in the times, Ayushman, when on a daily basis, opposition parties and some elements in India are questioning the government perhaps on the objectives achieved in Operation Sindhur,